Hi, everyone. This is Siris Verdejo, and I am here for the Choosing a Different Future show. And I'm so excited for who's on the show today. One of the things I love about this little just for me, just for fun project that is this show is I get to play and talk with some of my favorite people on the planet, and this person is no exception to that. Um, I'm going to introduce you to Sayler Shiningstar, one of my favorite co-creators and beings on the planet. She's witty, she's sexy, she's a perceptive woman and goddess, and she enjoys nature. We spend a lot of time with nature and animals when we're together, being with horses, and she loves living an orgasmic life and empowering others to choose and be the greatness they truly be. Now, not only is she one of my best friends, she's also a healer, a shaman, a goddess, an animal communicator, and an access consciousness bars facilitator. We've actually facilitated some classes together. She's a body process and facelift practitioner. If you want to know more about that, let us know. We can post the questions under this video and we'll let you know what that is. And she's a Waldorf early childhood teacher. And more than that, she's really undefinable, but those are some of the hats that she wears. And Sayler has been referred to as a horse whisperer. She prefers to call herself a horse listener. The horses whisper, and she's the one that listens. So just a total badass on so many levels. And we're actually going to be connecting with her and talking with her at her barn where she gets to play with her horses. And she's going to introduce us to some of my favorite beings, other favorite beings, her ponies, as we like to call them. Hi, Sayler. How are you? Oop, let me actually unmute you. How about that? It's not letting me though, interestingly. Maybe you can unmute yourself.
Let's see. There we go. All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Or good afternoon. Yeah, evening, wherever you are. So thank you. And I'm going to introduce you since they're right here. And I'm right here at the moment. This is Flicka. I could call these guys the ponies. She's actually the only one that's the pony. She's the only pony. And Kingdom, you want to say hi? Hi, you. Say hi.
Hi, Kingdom. Hi, Flicka.
He says, oh, I have my face in the food and I'll send you energy. Hi. You're done. Okay. And then we'll come down and say hi to Libby. These guys are a phenomenal part of my life, and they bring me so much joy. Let's see, I don't know how much, oh, there we go, this license fine.
Yeah,
hi.
You're really well. Hi, Libby.
Hi, Ma. How you doing, sweet lady? Yes, it's breakfast time. They prefer to, well, it just depends. Sometimes they like to schmooze, and sometimes they prefer to eat. Yeah. And so these guys, Siris and I were talking about this little story earlier. I was figuring it out, finally stopped trying to figure out what to call them, and asked them, so what would you all like to be called? And my little star guy back here, I hear the Three Stooges. And yeah, and those of you that know Kingdom, he is the humorous part of the three, and he loves to make people happy and laugh and smile. And so out of the Three Stooges then came doing horses humor and healing. And
yeah, that's one of your classes that you facilitate, and I've gotten to actually experience one of your classes. It was What Do the Horses Know, when I was in Durham, North Carolina, where you're at right now. And I know that you are also travel and everything, facilitating classes, which is amazing. And you've lived, I actually met you in Austin, Texas. But what is something that is different that people get invited to in that class that maybe other horse classes, because you've also taught people to ride horses. How does that different than when you're teaching someone to ride a horse?
Well, it's kind of interesting because when I teach to ride and when I facilitate in these other classes, it's a lot about talking to the horse, speaking to your own body, more so in the horse intros that I've been doing, versus actually teaching people to ride, because haven't been teaching people to. I haven't been putting people on my horses to ride for a while, and so kind of the similarities and the differences. The work right now off the horse is about becoming really embodied and asking your body what it requires, breathing, allowing the horses to facilitate, not just me facilitate. And they change things so quickly in people's bodies and just their whole being.
One of the things I loved about taking your class that it invited me to with that, just to piggyback off of it, is I love seeing you as a facilitator and get out of the way. Like, you really made it not about you. And that's what I love about being a facilitator instead of a teacher, is that it's about facilitating people's awareness, empowering them, and you're not the expert of their life or their body, they are. But you are really getting out of the way of the horses and letting the horses facilitate the people and the bodies in that class. And it was amazing to me because it actually, I don't even know if I ever told you this. It actually invited me to ask the question, well, wow, who else and what else could I get to facilitate my classes or to co-facilitate my classes with me that I haven't even considered? And because it's just get out of the way. What's actually going to work in your awareness? And your facilitation style is so lovely. You're so gentle and just so open to having whatever shows up. And that was this moment of like, holy cow, guacamole, all of the holies, like really, like this is another possibility with facilitation that I hadn't even looked at. And so I was choosing it as a participant. I didn't realize it was going to contribute to me in my future facilitation. So I've actually took what I learned in that class and it continues to reverberate through my being. But I took what I learned from that class, and I've actually used some of those energies and tools in my own classes after that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, and one of the things I invite people to do with the horses is to ask the horses. So a lot of people do classes with horses, and you ask the horses what the horses require. You know, you're trying to communicate with the horse about them. This is not with these horses. These horses want you to ask questions about your life, your business, what your body requires, and they are happy to send you messages, to nuzzle you somewhere, to turn their body in a particular way for you to get an answer with what they're giving you.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because some people haven't really ever chosen that or played around with that with people, let alone with animals, and or anything, you know, really actually receiving an awareness. So what are some of the ways that the awareness can show up that you've gotten for you, or that other people that have taken your classes have reported to you?
There are, there's all of a sudden seeing something after you've asked a question and you get, oh, aha, this is an answer. This has that same, for some of us, it would be, so this has that same resonance, that same energy, that same frequency. Pardon me. Or it might just be, oh, that makes sense. Let's try this. And pardon the, can you hear Coco in the background, the piggy?
Only a little bit, very faintly.
Okay. Yes. He's working his way up to getting louder.
Yes. I want some attention too. That's what I love about that barn. There's all kinds of animals there that want to play.
Yes, there's about 6 kittens in the barn aisle right now, and others around, and yes, lots of contributors. So if you're listening, open up and just allow everybody to contribute, whether you're here now or later. So other ways that people get answers with these guys, or I have gotten answers, is so several years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I was taking a class with one of my horses, and one of the things that I was aware of was that I was having challenges getting him to move from the right side and get his back end to move. And having been involved with metaphysics at that point in time quite a bit, I realized that, right side, masculine or male, left side, the back end, the past. And which made perfectly great sense for me, because I was looking at changing things that had gone on or had come about because I went through a lot of incest with my dad, like 12 years. And now I probably wouldn't make things quite so significant or particular.
Yeah, because anytime we talk about it now, and we've talked about it quite a bit, and you've honored me with your journey with all of that. There's no charge. So that's one of the things that just blows me away with you, is that you're so brave, and you've outcreated all of that, everything that anyone's ever projected and expected of you about that. And you can speak really candidly about it, so people know if they've experienced any kind of abuse, any incest, any sexual assault, that there's something that's way more possible, that they don't actually have to use that to define them anymore. So when you speak of it now, it's more of an example of, this is something that happened, and but it's not like, oh, this is who I was and this is what it's all this weight to it. It's always so light when you talk about it, and it blows me away. I thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I will say that it's not like I've forgotten it. I've done a lot of work, and a lot of the access has helped. I actually have to think about it to call back memories. To get specifics anymore, because has been so much that has been removed out of my system.
Yeah.
So there really is no charge left.
And one of the things that's reminding me of, because I've experienced sexual assault and all kinds of abuse as well, in a different way, is a lot of us, we're told that we have to hold on to the memory to honor us. But is that actually true? Is holding on to all of that charge and that solidification honoring us? Like, if it's there, if you remember it, that's fine. But what if you could actually remember it and it doesn't have that heaviness, that contraction in your world and in your body? And if you don't remember it, what if that's not a big deal? You don't need to call it up and make it like part of you again, because it never really was part of you.
And well, if it were, it would still be there. More so, I guess. Maybe.
If it's actually true for you, and if it's relevant now,
And to me, it's no more different than stopping labeling of anything. I liked how you said, you talked about some of the things that I do, or things that I've, classes I teach, or blah, 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 and that I'm undefinable. Well, we're all undefinable. If we wish to let go of all those labels, we don't have to have any labels. And the more undefinable I get and claim that, acknowledge it, I just go, and I would want to define myself for what reason? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know what just hit me with that? I don't think once in all the years I've known you have you ever labeled yourself as a survivor.
Not for years.
So maybe
yeah.
it was before, but like not in the time that we've known each other. And there are many folk, including some of my family members, that actually use that definition and that label to define themselves, and that's their identity. And one of the things I had a conversation with one of my family members that is really invested in that as a label. And I asked, I was like, okay, so if you're a survivor, what is that creating in your world? Are you creating things that where you have to keep surviving from, like problems in your life and things that show up, so that you can, like, I survived this now and I survived this now. You have to keep going and having this stuff come up to then fit the label. I mean, that's how I was with being a problem solver. I defined myself as a problem solver. So guess what kept showing up? Problems for me to solve. And sometimes they were problems walking on two legs for me to solve and fix and change. And now I'm like, I don't define myself in that way. And so I don't have any of those problems. It creates a lot more lightness and a lot more fun in my world, because I can use that energy that I was using for those other things, like solving problems and fixing things, to have fun and to create and empower people and facilitate classes and have these amazing chats with people like you.
Yeah. It's a lot of energy involved with keeping a label up and promoting it and having to be that.
And a lot of judgment, because then you have to see if whatever you choose or don't choose fits that identity and that label or not. Like, does this fit who I am or not? It's like, well, what's it going to create if I choose that? What's it going to create if I don't choose that? Instead of like it having to fit into a box of whatever label you're choosing. Hi, Libby.
Yeah. Oh, guess who else is here to say hi?
Is it Danny?
It's Timon. Hi, sweetie. No, you can't stay up here, though, because you make too much noise with your purring.
Sure does. So, yeah, choosing beyond abuse and beyond anyone else's point of view about the labels and definitions. Like, what have the horses invited you? Hi, Danny. That's my boy.
He says, I'm right here too.
Yeah.
I'm right here too.
Danny and
I don't know about that light though.
So one of the things that I would love to ask you is how the horses and your choices have actually facilitated you to choose beyond labels and those definitions. Like, how have they played a part in you not making the incest that you experienced significant?
There's an energy with that. They their facilitation just allows that to crumble. I don't know how else to say it, or dissipate. So the earth and the horses and nature, animals, all of that invites us to a different place. It invites me to be in a different space, to be a different person, a different being.
Is it actually somebody different, or is it more of who you actually are?
Yeah, that.
Because that's one of the things that you reminded me of, is that I didn't know. I knew at some level, but I didn't know until you pointed out to me in the class that when you're with a horse, then your heartbeat starts matching their heartbeat. And you become really, really present, because they're calm. They're not making anything a big deal. Nothing's a big deal. It's like, here we go. How you doing? And you just get to be. And so you're not you're not doing this definition. You're not trying to prove that you are any of those labels. You're just being with them. And that little comment about the heartbeat, I was like, oh, I could just listen to that and listen to my heartbeat and just breathe. And wow. And all of the thoughts in my head went away. And including all of those possible labels I might have placed on myself. Just went, whew.
There's the heart rate that changes. Science is now proving that our blood pressure changes. One of the things I enjoy doing with people is getting them to actually breathe with the horse and change their the amount of air they're taking in and allowing themselves to expand, both physically.
Have people actually had changes in their like lung capacity with those exercises?
With the being out with the horses, yes. And I haven't followed up to see how much was still happening after they left. And for myself, I can always feel it change. If I walk into the barn contracted with something, whatever, and just not
some
being
virus
my standard
or something.
Yes. Well, yes, and yeah.
And we had a holistic doctor as one of our guests on the show, so he could probably speak to that as well. I wonder what it would be like if y'all got together, because he's also loves horses, and connecting the holistic medicine with horseplay and pony time.
Is that Dr. Deco or somebody else?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He loves horses. Oh yeah.
I did not
get him talking about horses.
I will do that. Yeah. I'm just going to the other end of the barn because I think Kimberly has arrived, so there's going to be conversation down at the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've kind of lost.
Well, we were talking about what the horses have contributed to you going beyond definition and letting go of the stuff that's happened and showed up in your life earlier in your life, or any moment really. Like how they do that for you and how they've done that for other people.
Yeah. So one of the things they've done for me is to totally change how I grew up playing with horses. I grew up more old school. When you went to put a saddle on a horse and you tighten up the cinch, you wanted to get it all tight as quickly as possible. If the horse wouldn't exhale, you'd knee it in the gut or in the chest side. and over the years, they've helped me realize that that's not very kind. Matter of fact, it's really fucking rude. And the nicer thing is and more compassionate, is just start cinching up the girth a little bit at a time, maybe 3 different times, and not doing the knee in the side, because I don't know if anybody's ever been punched in the side or fractured a rib. It doesn't feel good. So I got to thinking, why would I do the equivalent to punching a horse in the ribs because I want them to exhale faster? Instead of being more gentle about it and just giving them the chance to have the girth tightened a little bit, and then they can relax and breathe into that, and then tighten it a little more, and then they can relax and breathe into that, and then finally, just before I get on, I will give it a little more tighter, if it requires.
Yeah.
And I teach these things to, whether I'm teaching people to ride or whether I'm teaching them to be with horses on the ground and doing something from on the ground, to do things and ask questions and do things in increments, I guess I would say. Not to force it. And and yet also to follow the energy. So if there was something that, oh, what if I could ride bareback instead of riding with a saddle? And then I don't have to do this at all, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's just so many examples of what the horses have taught me, shown me, other people.
Well, it sounds
So
like at minimum, if nothing else, it's also one of the things that I'm getting from what you're saying is that they're inviting you to actually be more in the question. It's like, what if I didn't actually base anything that I'm choosing right now on anything I've ever chosen before, anything I've ever seen other people choose, anything that anyone else I know has considered? It's like, okay, blank slate. What's going to work here? What is kind? What is honoring of me and this beautiful, beautiful animal that desires to create with me and contribute to my body and facilitate more ease? And a lot of times it might be something that you've never even seen before. Maybe you've seen one person do, and it's like this off exception to the rule, and you can just choose it. And even if you haven't seen anyone else choose it before.
Yeah.
And what's that created with your relationship with the horses? Because some of your horses have had kind of traumatic experiences before you. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it's not just that they've invited you to create beyond the abuse and that you've experienced, but you've also been creating with them so that they can choose and create beyond their experiences.
Yeah. So the one I could, that really comes through, that's, I also had an aha about yesterday. Pardon me. Is that, so we've had Kingdom's owned us the longest. And I think now he's been with us for 8 years, maybe.
Wow, that's awesome.
He's gorgeous. He's gorgeous.
He really is.
And he's a beautiful mover. And people tried to push him, and he had a really tough, we got him when he was 13. His life before that, for 6 years, the last 6 years had been really easy. He'd been turned out with a whole bunch of horses. Prior to that, people were trying to get him to conform and do what they wanted, and he was in pain, and they didn't realize it. And he hurt some people fairly badly.
Because they weren't listening to what he was trying to communicate to them. Okay.
Yeah, they were.
And how many of that is the kids that we work with? Because you also work with kids. We go to this question like, okay, what's their behavior telling me? What are they trying to communicate with this behavior? And I love that it also applies to animals, including the horses.
Yeah. So he waited for us for 4 years to come back and get him. And when I got him and took him to the barn where he was going to be living, he was terrified. He wanted to touch things, but he was afraid to touch anything. If he touched something, and actually he's very mouthy, if he would get a hold of something like a lead rope or something on a table, and he'd start to move it, and it would make noise, all of a sudden his eyes would get really big, and he'd go, and he'd bite down, and he'd start to back up.
And how much of that is what we've seen also with people? It sounds like PTSD.
Yeah. Yeah. So I tried to talk him out of it, and it was interesting. He would just kind of escalate. And then after a while, I realized that laughing at him, I would just laugh, not at him, but laugh.
Yeah.
And it would change the energy. It would break whatever was going on for him. And
did it matter what kind of laugh it was?
It had to be, for him, it has to be a gentle thing. It has to be gentle. He's such a sweet man.
Do you want to demonstrate the laugh you would use?
Gosh, I don't imitate it very easily. It comes naturally when he's doing something silly. But yeah, kind of like that. Goofy, silly boy.
Uh-huh.
And I
A
might say
little bit of
something
a
else.
giggle there. Okay.
Yeah, if you let go of it, it'll stop following you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and he got much better. Um, and he can still try to do it a little bit, just to see what the reaction might be. One of the things I did for him around that, because he wouldn't touch anything except when, and then he'd scare himself. Or when he did, he'd scare himself. So I got, I cut up carrots into little pieces and get in horse treats, and I would take them around this big arena and put them on the railing, or put them down on a hay bale, or on the mounting block, just different places. And I'd take him around, halter and lead, and we'd walk up to something, and I'd look at it. I would just stare at it so he'd get the energy, and he'd kind of go in that direction. And then he'd realize, oh, a treat. And he'd eat the treat. And we would just keep doing that. And so after a little while, I don't know if it was a week or two or what have you, I started doing that without having the halter on him. And he'd just follow me around, and I'd look in a direction to where a treat was, and he'd walk a couple feet in whatever direction and go pick it up and eat it. And then I'd start walking, and he'd follow me. And
And I don't see
yeah.
people doing that, where they use their energy and their gaze and like kind of to highlight objects for animals. I do that with children, where I'll just kind of like go that way. And I didn't realize that I did that. Wow. Until you just gave this example right now with the horses. I do that with kids. I'll go, instead of pointing, because some kids, they don't follow your point. A lot of the kids I work with don't. They have autisms. They don't follow the point. So how do I get them to follow the point before they actually pay attention to gestures? I was doing it with my gaze and with the energy that I being, to have it become kind of brighter for them in their world, and they'd look to the shiny bits.
Yeah.
And you're highlighting and making things shinier for them. I'd love that.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving me that awareness.
You're welcome. And one of the things the aha I got last night, and it was like, wow. So was that really for Kingdom, or was that really for me, that exercise? What was the aha? Funny, I'm.
What if it's for both? What if it was in one or the other?
Yes. But all this time I'd been thinking, oh, it had all been for him. Silly human or humanoid. Yeah. Now, if I remember what the aha is, other than it wasn't just for him, I will let you know, because in these 10
that's a
seconds,
big aha right there, that there's reciprocity, that when every time we're gifting and we're doing things for other people, we're also receiving. But a lot of us will define ourselves as the givers. And so then we don't actually look at where we are already receiving and where else we could be receiving. And that's one of the things that I love about your classes with the horses, is it invites you to receive from the horses and more of you via their facilitation. And it's like, wow, I could receive so much more, and faster and clearer and gentler. And it's only really been in the last couple years that I was allowing myself to receive gently and kindly and sweetly. And your horses have been that for me. So thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for bringing them into my life, because I freaking love your ponies.
Yeah. It's and Livy has Livy used to be really stoic. So Livy's tall. Livy's really tall.
Yeah, you can't really tell with the camera and stuff, because you're also very tall.
Well, and she had her head down eating.
Yeah.
When Livy's looking regal, Livy's head goes up, and her head is like way up here. And sometimes she requires some eye ointment and things like that if she wants it. and she's got something going on right now where she wants the eye ointment. And because she's asked, she will usually keep her head down far enough that I can get it in with ease. And I will say she jams those eyelids closed so that it's hard to get it in there, but she doesn't want her eye to hurt.
Yeah, who does?
Yeah, but it used to be her head would go so far up that even my daughter, who's a couple inches taller than I am and longer arms and longer legs, she'd have to get up on a stool or something to put it in Livy's eye. Now, and other people, she just wouldn't. She'd try to knock them out with her head. She's got a big old head. So the change for her being with us, I'm getting this from her as I touch in with her, has been it's been so different for her whole nervous system. And allowing her to relax, have particular people she can count on, and that she gets we will be gentle and ask for permission, and also honor her in a very gentle way. So she allows these things. Used to be it was screw you and get another sheet of paper to stand on because I'm going to go however higher I can get.
Yeah. That actually gets into something else I'd love to talk to you about with the horses and everything is bodies.
Yes.
And awareness with bodies and ease with bodies, and communicating with bodies. I mean, there's so much with the bodies and the horses and animals and nature in general, I find to be such a wonderful contribution to my body. Like I was just talking to someone this morning about, like, a lot of times when I am having difficult moments, it's getting movement, it's going out in nature that all of a sudden it dissipates it, or even the shower where they just kind of let it wash away, all these different things that can invite more ease. And so what have the horses and your choices so far taught you about bodies?
Well, in addition to the heart rate and breathing and connecting with them that way, I actually choose to spend a lot of time with them and on the ground and hand walking them or just hanging out with them. And what that seems to do for me, one is gait, so I move more, and appreciating moving, and also being aware of body mechanics or joints and things that aren't quite moving as easily as they might, both for myself and for the horse. And being mindful of those sorts of things. The breathing with the horses got me more in touch with my breath, where and when I hold it, how often I hold it, because one of the things I teach the children or anybody is that the most important thing you can do around a horse is breathe.
Why is that? What's that about?
Well, when we hold our breath, we're contracting. There's something that's scaring us. The horse works on senses immensely. That's how they stay alive. And when we stop breathing, they want to know what the hell's going on that's scaring us. Because if we're scared, they need to be scared.
They're using us as like kind of like an indicator of what they need to be aware of. And so when that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And it also goes the opposite direction. So for some people, some of us that play with horses, and all of a sudden we feel fear, it might not be our fear. It might be the horse's fear of something, and we're picking up on it.
Mm.
And either of those times is a great time to ask questions. What am I perceiving? What am I aware of? Is it mine? Is it someone else's?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there something I can do with my body? Expand, relax, drop my shoulders, take a deeper breath. One of the ways to get horses to relax is to yawn.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Now you're gonna start yawning.
Yeah. But it's interesting, it's like, people sometimes we will yawn together as consciousness is being shifted, or anti-consciousness is being shifted, unconsciousness is being shifted. And the breath holding, if we yawn, it breaks that fear pattern of, it breaks the fear pattern that's going on in that moment and allows for change.
I'm going to totally use that with so many other things in my life right now. With other people, because a lot of people come to me very fearful. And I'm going to add that to my toolbox. Thanks. Because I often, when I'm perceiving a shift in energy or unconsciousness, I yawn. And so I'm going to actually use that consciously to maybe shift some of that fear or help them. And because some people don't actually want to let go of it consciously. They don't want to actually choose to let go of the fear. They're really invested in keeping it. Maybe it's part of those definitions that we were talking about. Like, it's like, well, I feel it, so I must be mine. A lot of stuff that we feel is actually not ours. It's just awareness that we have, that we're perceiving things. It really helped me a lot to acknowledge how much I was aware of everyone else's fear and anxiety and depression and sadness, because I didn't have to take anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication anymore, which I was doing. It was not fun. It was great for my liver to not have so many medications. But yeah, that's fascinating. That's really, really cool. One of the things too that I loved that I got to witness directly, Livy receiving energies and how she and the shift in her body when I was there in Durham. Do you want to tell them that story?
I will, because that was another thing that I was going to share, because you were asking what have the horses taught me, so to speak.
Yeah, about bodies. Yeah.
Yeah. So, asking questions is a big thing. I've spent a lot of years doing things alternatively. And for many years, it was like, call a doctor. Who the fuck wants to call a doctor? And what Livy has, and my daughter have helped me with, is asking, do they require to see a vet or a doctor right now? Or do they require something else? And there's several instances. One was before Livy even got here, she colicked. She started colicking the night before Kingdom, and they were all supposed to get on the trailer. She went to the vet hospital. The next day the horses came here, and she had colic surgery the day they got on the trailer. I normally would have just treated it on my own and have had immense success doing that. But I asked her, do you require to go to the doctors or to go to, and I got a yes. So at 10 o'clock at night, we put her in a trailer, and a friend of ours hauled her up to the vet clinic.
And I love that just right there, because you're willing to actually honor her point of view and what she was asking for, even though like you have addressed that before. You have addressed colic before successfully and other things. And it's not basing your choice in that moment on anything you'd ever chosen in the past, like we were talking about earlier. That's a great example of that. And then what happened?
She had colic surgery. they they pulled out about 6 to 8 feet of intestine. Cleaned it out. They found about a 5-inch size rock hard piece of material in there that had just kept dropping into smaller and smaller intestines and couldn't go any further.
Wow.
So had I not been willing to ask her what she required, we probably would have lost her.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you listened to her.
Me too. Me too. That was a $7,500 surgery. Yeah, and well worth it.
Yeah.
Because she's an amazing being. And so what happened when you were here is we were headed out to the barn, and I got a text from somebody that got out here before us, that was involved with our class, and said, somebody's walking Livy, she's in distress. And I knew what that meant on many levels. I just started asking questions. You were asking questions and pocking and potting things, because walking a horse that's in distress usually means they're colicking.
And what Sayler's referring to is just a way of clearing energies and things that are lies and not actually true for us. That's an access consciousness tool that she's referring to. And yeah, we were on our way to see the horses. We were going to go visit them in between classes that we were doing in Durham, and just to receive from them and play. And we got that message. And with everybody in the car, we didn't go into the freak out.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I loved, is like we all had each other's backs, and it's like, let's go and talk to Livy. Let's go and see what her take on this is, and not actually buy the point of view of that person and not make it significant. It was just like, okay, well, that's their point of view, and let's see. And we're not going to do anything right now. We're almost there. So let's look at it directly and see what's actually going to shift this, if there's anything to shift at all.
Yeah. So we pulled up, and by the time we got here, the barn owner was walking her. And when I walked down to get Livy, I was greeted with, she's this, she's that, you need to call the vet, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, I'll take her now. And I just walked away with Livy and was talking to her and clearing all the points of view that she had just received about what was happening, what was going to happen, how it needed to be treated, that the vet had to come out and treat her, blah, 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 blah.
A lot of conclusions.
There was. And within, I don't know, 2 minutes, max, 120 seconds. I'd say probably 60 seconds. Her whole energy changed. Enough that everybody else saw it.
Oh,
everybody, yeah. Our group saw it. Our group was very aware of it.
And we were like, awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Libby, you're coming. Yay.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, she pooped a piece that looked like a frigging huge hoagie sandwich.
Yeah, it was massive.
Horses
watching this are not squeamish about bodily functions.
Yes.
Between the horses and animals and working with kids, Sayler and I are not.
Yeah. So anyway, that's not the size poop a horse does. Yeah. And we were glad to see it come out, and I took a picture of it, and then oh, did you send that to the vet? No, thank you. I'll take care of this. A little more releasing of conclusions, and yeah. And she had a couple more of those over the next few days.
One of the things that you did where you were running different body processes on her. Even before you were starting to walk up to her, and she was just like letting you go and letting you know where to put your hands, what energies she required, and you just were those energies for her. And that's one of the things I love about horses and animals and kids, is that they're totally willing to receive these energies and let go of stuff really quickly. Let go of anything that's not true for them. Let go of that contraction, that heaviness, the solidification. They're like, oh, that's possible. Okay, cool. Whoosh. And it goes. And we got to see that in this big, beautiful animal with this big, beautiful dump.
Yep.
It's like, oh, that's a literal and also a metaphor for what's possible.
Yes.
Let go of all that shit. Okay, great.
Yeah. So it was great. It was great. Just,
Awesome.
yeah. And so, I mean, that's in addition to what the horses have taught me. They've taught me to ask them about, do they want to be ridden with a bit or with a halter and lead? Do they want to be ridden with a saddle or bareback? I ask them if they'll take care of me if I'm going to get on them or put anybody on them. Matter of fact, the kids have always been taught, before you get on one of my horses, you ask them if you may get on and ask them to take care of you. Because if you don't get a yes to those, don't get on.
Yeah.
You know, I ask them about how much feed they require. I ask them if they require any of the supplements. So there's a lot of different things that I ask that, yeah.
And the asking, I love that, what that invites the kids to, because a lot of my parents that I work with as a speech language pathologist and learning behavioral specialist and feeding therapist and things, is that they're imposing their agenda on the kids, on their bodies, and then the kids don't actually get a sense that their bodies are their own.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are telling the kids that they have that about consent as teenagers, but it starts from the moment they get out. I ask infants, hey, is it okay if I come toward you? Can I pick you up? I don't just pick them up. And toddlers, it's like, okay, would you like food? What food? Instead of shoving it in their mouths. I have had parents that they're so worried about the life and death of the kid getting the nutrition that they need, which is an absolutely valid concern. And so they start shoving food in the kid's mouth, and it creates all these other issues and all these other secondary behaviors. So I love that you're actually with the horses, letting the kids know, oh, the horses consent. It's their bodies, just like it's your bodies. People should be asking you these questions for your body too.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
And then when they get off, I have them say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole, learning gratitude.
Mm-hmm. And courtesy. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And manners with all of that. It's so honoring, and it really changes the dynamic of what's possible for them as kids in the future, and the horses and you. Like, it's like, oh, the horse has choice. Oh, do I have choice? Oh, I do too. Wow, I get to choose. Like, what future has that created for all of the kids that have ever taken classes with you?
Good question. Yeah. A different future. It's, yeah.
So on that note, I think that's a great place to pause. I would love to have you on the show again, Sayler. Thank you so, so, so much for gifting us with your presence and the presence of the ponies, Flicka and Livy and Kingdom. Now, for any of y'all, if you have any questions for Sayler, please feel free to post them under this video. And you can also reach her. She's on Facebook at Sayler Shiningstar BF. Her email address, sayler.shiningstar@gmail.com. She's an Access Consciousness Bars facilitator, so she has a website on the Access Consciousness website, accessconsciousness.com/Sayler Shiningstar, and check out her classes. I get the sense that she's going to be creating more and more of them, not necessarily because she wants to, but the horses are asking for a lot of classes. And so she's like, okay. So one of the
Yeah.
classes is What Do the Horses Know? This is the one, that's the one I took, and it was phenomenal. There's also Horses, Humor, and Healing. And it looks like we might actually even be creating some horses classes together in the future. We're talking about that. We'll keep you posted about it. Let us know if you want us to send you the information for it. But yeah, what else is possible with receiving with horses, with our bodies, and with choosing with all of that to create a different future?
Yeah.
Thanks for now. See you next time. Thank you,
Thank
Sayler.
you all. Thank you, Siris. Thank you, everybody listening.
Bye.
Bye.